Welcome to Minukuu tutorials. Today I'm going to show you how to specify the column, in other words the variable that contains your row names when importing or reading data into R. Why is this so important? For example, in PCA, otherwise known as Principal Components Analysis, or even in classification and what have you, other methods of descriptive statistics, sometimes we have to plot graphs of individuals. In other words, graphs that will bear row names as the labels. And when this happens, by default, when we import or read data into R attributes some numeric names like 1, 2, 3 in that order by default. And these names, on a graph, instead of having, for instance, names of students like Koyo, Ama, Esi, Ali, Mohammed, Steven, Gerard, instead of having names of students, what do we have? We rather have 1, 2, 3 and what have you. So it's hard, it's cumbersome to look on a graph and now see, that's one correct. You have to look at one, go back to the data set and verify whether one corresponds to Koyo or Edward. So this cumbersome. We actually want the names of the individuals, in other words the rows, to appear on our graph, but due to data importation problem you may have this issue, and this is why I'm gonna show you today how to solve it. All right, so without wasting my time, we have this. Let's assume we have this data set here and we want to read it into R. What do? Let me open it and show it to you. So this is an Excel file, and as you can see, it contains the name of the student, his or her marks, and then his region. So let's try to read this data into R using any of the common commands like read.csv, read.table, and what have you. So let's use, for instance, the read.csv command. First of all, we need to save this file on the desktop in the form of a CSV file or any other text file to be able to read it into R. But we could also use the read.xl command. I will show you both and the disadvantage of using the read.xl command. All right, so first of all, let's import this data into R, and I'll show you how to now specify the column, in other words the variable, how to specify that student contains actually the row names, so that R will not give us the default 1, 2, 3 labels for our rows. So to save this file in the form of a CSV file, in order to import it, as we all know, we simply have to click on file here, then we click on save as. So when you click on save as, and preferably we put it on a desktop so that we not struggle to locate it. So I'll click on desktop, then let me ensure that I've actually selected desktop, and then I'll come down here and the file type, I will click here on this drop down list and select what? CSV, in other words comma separated or comma delimited file. So after selecting that, once again let me ensure that I'm to save it on the desktop. Now click on save. Now click on OK and yes. So if I should go to the desktop, we'll have our CSV file being saved. All right, so we have our CSV file here. How do we now read this CSV file into R? So we come to R or RStudio, whichever that you are using is the same principle. So let's assume we are to name our data set as dataset. So I'll say dataset is equal to, then I'll use the read.csv command, and then into quotations I'll simply go into bracket and into quotations. I'll simply go onto the desktop and copy the file path, in other words the file extension or whatever you may want to call it. So this is our CSV file right here on the desktop. How do we copy the file extension? Let me show you how. You right click on the file, click on properties. Then when you click on properties, you click on security, and you simply copy the name of the file, in other words the file path, which is right here. So right click on it and click on copy, and after copying the file path, you come to your R or RStudio, and then you paste it right in between the quotation marks. Now you have the choice, you either put 2 backslashes or you delete and put a single backslash. As you can see, okay, it's all right. There are many other commands, or many other arguments that we just leave it as it is by default. We don't set it, we just, and it also depends on the version of R that you are using. If you are using the old versions, this is actually one of the latest versions. The June 2020 version is what I'm using currently, and with the June 2020 version, when you're using read.csv command, by default, as soon as you just put the file path, you are true to go. It imports the data in the form of a data frame straight away. You don't need to specify header is equal to true and what have you. But if you are using the old versions, never mind, follow your normal procedure for importing data into R that you are used to or you are conversant with. At the end of the day, I'll show you how you can specify the column name, the column that contains your row names, and it doesn't matter whichever command that you use, whether you are using read.table, read.csv, read.delimit, or whatever. It's the same thing. So let me just simply read this our data. I'll select and run, and the reading is done. If I want to show the data set, then I have to say print into brackets data set. All right, so if I should say print into brackets data set, and here's our data set. So this is the problem that I'm talking about. R has imported our data set perfectly. As you can see, this is the original data set here, student, marks, and region, and it's perfectly imported. However, we want to get rid of these numbers. In place of these numbers, we want to specify R to recognize the fact that the rows, instead of naming the rows by numbers as it is here, so that if we are to carry out principal components analysis or any kind of analysis that require that we have a graph of the individuals, in other words a graph of the names or the rows here, we don't want 1, 2, 3 and what have you to be there. We rather prefer the actual names: Ama, Kojo, Alice, Sandong, George, Ali, Lamia, Sarah, and what have you. This is actually what we want. Better still, we could replace the row names by what? The regions. So the region of the student and what have you. These are all different options that we have, and I will show you how we can do that. So to specify that the row names of your data set are in a particular variable, you simply have to add to this command. You simply put comma, and then you add row.names is equal to, and then you specify the name of the row that you are going to use. You have the choice. We know that, for instance, if we want to use student as the row names for the variable, or the column student as the row names for our data set, then we have to say row.names equal to 1. Better still, we can just write into quotations the name of that particular row, which is student. It's the same thing. So if I should run this, this is done. Now if I should print our data set once again, you realize that R has done it perfectly. It has actually recognized that initially this was imported as a variable, it separated its variable, or just like any other variable, you understand. But now it has recognized the fact that student here is to be used as row names and not just a variable that we are going to analyze. So in place of this 1, 2, 3 and what have you, it has been replaced. It has replaced them by what? our student names. Now the question is, what if we want to use maybe region as our row names instead of students? Then we simply have to write a region as it is written here in your data set, region, or sorry, I didn't put a cursor here, so you simply have to write region. If you don't want to write region, then region corresponds to the third column, so you simply write tray. If you don't want it that way, it's the same thing. So if I should write region here and I run, now if I should print our data set, you see right now R has recognized region, the regions as our row names. So we have Upper West region, Upper East region, Northern region, Central region, different regions, Ashanti region, Brown Afro region. These are actual regions of Ghana. That's why I'm reciting them so well like this. All right, so this is perfect. So this is how we specify that our row names are contained in a particular column, or we ask, this is how we command R to use a particular column as our row names when importing or reading data into what R or RStudio for that matter. Now there are certain things that you have to note. First of all, you have to understand that in case there are duplicates in the particular column that you are going to use as your row names, it will not work. Let me show you a very quick example. This is our original data sets. Let's assume that I replace let's assume I replace this Upper West region. Let's assume I repeat Upper West region. So I'll write Upper West region again. Let's assume Ama is from Upper West region, Kojo is also from Upper West region. So I'll write Upper West region again. And then I'll save this. Say yes. All right, now after saving this, let me try once again to specify that I want R to use. I've saved it actually. So after I've saved it, so when I saved it, it was saved automatically in the CSV file. This is actually the CSV file that we opened, so it's okay. Now, if I try to read the data in again, it will give me an error. Let's try that and see. I'm saying that it should still use region as our row names. So if I should run this, see, it has given me a warning that there's a duplicate in the row names and it's not allowed. That's to say you cannot have this. It depends on the kind of data set that we have, so if we have this not repeated data, you understand, it's not repeated data, so we cannot have the name of an individual, or the row cannot be repeated more than once, or it cannot just be repeated, let me put it that way. So when we replace, so now we cannot have Upper West, and that's why it has given us this error. You see it? So we cannot always make sure that when you are to use the row.names argument, whichever variable that you want to use as your column, your row names, then that particular variable should not contain duplicates. This is one thing that you have to note. So let's put back here Upper East region, and if I should say Control Save, if I should come in now, try it will work out. See, it has now worked out again. Let me print our data set. Just select and print, and here it is. Better still, if you want us to use region, the name of the student corresponds to what? The first variable. So we simply put 1, or we can simply type student again, as we did. You want to use student as instead of region, then we simply type 1, or we can write student into quotations if you want to. That's how it works. All right, so this is the first thing that you have to note, that the variable or the column that you are going to use as your row names must not contain duplicates. Secondly, okay, let me note it for you, please. So first note, no duplicates, or let's say variable to be used, or variable containing row names. No, variable okay, variable to be used as row names must not contain duplicates. Okay, so this is the first thing that you have to note. And then the second thing that you have to also note is that certain what do we call it, certain commands do not have the read dot, what do we call it, the row dot names argument. So please note this. This is the first note. Secondly, please also note that certain commands or data reading commands do not contain the row dot name arguments. So please note this, that certain commands do not contain the row dot names argument. And I'll show you a very good example. So let's try to import our data set with a different, first of all, the question that you have to ask yourself is, how do I know whether the command I'm using, whether read.table, read.csv, whatever that you are using, how do I know whether it contains the row.names argument, which would allow me to specify that my row names are contained in a particular column? To know this, you simply type help into brackets the name of the command that you want to use. So supposing that I want to use read.table to import my data set, or read.csv for that matter, so I just simply write read.csv, and I will seek some help about the arguments that come with what? Read.csv. And yeah, as soon as I do this, when you come to the health pane here, if I should, let me highlight or zoom it. Okay, so as you can see, when you are using the either read.table, read.csv, read.csv2, read.delimited, or whatever command that you may be using, these are the, like this, how we usually start with, for example, read.table, read.csv is in the same family. You usually import a data set in the form of what? A data frame. So it's the same thing, and we just look at the arguments. By default, we skip all these things and we just write the file path and we go away. But let's look at the arguments. Among the arguments, what is the most important argument is what? The row.names, which is right here. So what it tells us is that when you are using read.delimited, read.csv2, read.csv, or read.table, all these categories of or commands have the row.names argument, which allows us to specify that our row names are in a particular column or variable. However, let's try this. Let's use the read excel command and see. The read excel command does not contain read excel command does not contain the row.names what do you call it, argument. Let me show you why. For example, the read Excel command is as follows. It's also very important and it's very useful. It allows us to import or read an Excel file directly into R without necessarily converting it into CSV as we've done or we've already done using read.table or read.csv. You see, when you are using read Excel file or read Excel command, it's able to read data directly in the form of Excel format. So, but the problem with this is that first of all, you have to install a package known as read Excel. So let's quickly do that, and I'll show you its disadvantage. Further, that like it doesn't contain the row.names command. So when you are using read Excel command, it's helpful because it allows you to import the data straight away, but it has its challenges. So let's try that and see. So if I should say to install the package that contains the read Excel command, the package is actually called read.xl. So you say install .packages into brackets, in quotations you write the name of the package, which is read.xl. All right, I've already installed it. I don't need to install it again, but if you want to try, you can just install it. You select it and you run. I've already installed it, so I'll say no. Now after installing it, you have to load it. So you say library, you load it in your library, into brackets, read Excel. All right, so that we can load it and it will be accessible, ready for use. All right, so it's okay. We've loaded our read Excel command, package, and we can now access the read Excel command in order to read in our Excel file directly. So let's go back to our desktop and I'll show you the Excel file that we are going to read into R. This is the original Excel file, and this is what the CSV that we created. So if I should open the original Excel file, as you can see, the original Excel file, there are actually how many sheets? We have 3 sheets. This is the first one, which is like this. I never showed you this. This is the second one that we imported, and this is the third one. So the read Excel command allows us to read any of these sheets. Whether we want to read in sheet 1 or sheet 2, we can read either of them. So it's not complicated. Let me show you how. We simply come back to our R, and now we use so we can name this one, let's say data. Let's just call it data. Then we use is equal to or less than and dash is the same thing. Is equal to read Excel underscore Excel. This is how it is. The command is actually found in this package that we've installed. Now we write into quotations. We simply go to the desktop and copy the file extension as usual. So this is our Excel file. We want to read it. We don't want to save it into CSV or whatever. We just want to import it straight away. So we simply see that the Excel file is not the same as this is a CSV format. This is the original Excel file. So we simply right click on it, click on properties, click on security, and copy the file extension, which is right here. Now we copy it and come back to your R or RStudio and paste it here. Control V and we paste it. Now we either put 2 backslashes or 1 forward slash, and we are through to go. All right, so this is done, but now there is still one important argument, which is since we haven't saved our Excel file into separately, or the sheet that we want to import separately, now it's up to us to indicate which sheet we want to import. Do you want to import sheet 1? Do you want to import sheet 2 or sheet 3? So let's assume we want to import sheet 1, or if you want sheet 2, this is the first sheet, this is the second sheet, as you can see over here. First sheet, second sheet. Let me highlight it so that you can see down here. All right, it's not trying to zoom, but this is the first sheet. As you can see, the cursor, first sheet, second sheet. So let's assume we want to import a second sheet. So we simply have to, let me get down because there's no enough space, and say put command, and you say sheet is equal to sheet 2, for example. So it's equal to 2. If I should run this, it's done. Now if I should print data, you have our data set imported. So you have it here, just as we did before. It's the same thing. And this one even tells you the nature of the variable. This is a character or a factor, this an integer, and this also a character, the region. So, and it's well imported. By default, it also attributes what 1, 2, 3, and what have you. So let's assume we want to also replace these row names 1, 2, 3 by a particular column. For example, we want to replace the 1, 2, 3 by what? We want to indicate that the rows should be named by Ama, Koyo, and Alice, and what have you. It wouldn't work here. Why? Because the read Excel command doesn't contain the row.names argument. Let me show you why. Let's assume we just come and put command here and say row.names is equal to, see that in the process it never suggested it for me because it doesn't exist, but let's assume it's equal to, then we write the name of the row. Let's assume we want to use the first row as the names, so we say 1, and then I execute. It will give me an error simply because this command here, which is read Excel, unlike read.table, read.csv, or read.delim, read Excel does not contain the row.names arguments. So if I should execute this command, it will give me an error. You see what I'm saying? So, and in the same way, if you want to know whether the read Excel command contains the row.names argument or not, as I told you, you have to simply type help into brackets read Excel underscore Excel, and now find out from the arguments whether there is row.names argument. Let me look at the help pane. So as you can see, this is the command, the read Excel command. In the read Excel command, we simply go straight to the arguments. We have path, we have the file path or the file extension, we have what we call sheet, from which sheet you want to import the data. We took it from sheet 2. And then after, you have the range, the column names. The column names allow, when you say the column names is equal to true, you are simply telling R that your, what do we call it, your variables are contained. Sorry, let me show you. When you say the column names is equal to true, you are simply telling R that the first row, which is student, marks, and region, actually correspond to your column names. When you say it's equal to false, then it will replace, it will consider student, marks, and region, which is the first row of your data set, as also what? Individuals. In other words, as also in rows instead of row names. So by default, it's equal to true, and it's okay. Column types, whatever. But you see that there's nothing like row.names arguments among the arguments of what? The read Excel command. And this is why it gave us an error. So if you've been using read Excel as your command for importing data or reading data into R, then in case you want to specify that your column names are contained in a particular variable, I would advise you use what? read.table, read.csv, or any of the other commands other than read Excel command. There are many other commands, so it's up to you to find out. Anytime you want to find out whether the command you are about to use to import your data set contains the row.names argument, as I said, you should write help into brackets the name of the command that you are to use, and it will give you the list of arguments contained in this command. I hope my explanation was clear, and if you have any question, please do not hesitate to ask or comment at the video. Give me thumbs up if you like the video, and please subscribe and share with your neighbor. Bye.